When he says it, he means it, and you don't get to bend it and twist it to what you want. To reach the lost Israelites, the message has to go to everybody, and then the whomsoever will come. The ones who he draws will come. By the way, knowledge meaning what? Having a relationship with the truth. Oh, you learned, you got tons of information, but have you come into a relationship with truth? Okay, we good? Yes, okay, good. I got the thumbs up. All right, shalom, everyone. Welcome to our Tuesday night Torah study. And it's always good to come together and be able to share in studying of the Word, reading it out loud and talking about it. And so we're going to do that here for the next hour or two. And I know we do have a lot of you also on the live stream, and we'll have Manny watching that live stream desk here in a minute. Okay, so just a reminder to everyone, as especially if anybody's new, as they're here for the first time, that what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of quick prayer requests and prayer time as needed, just in case anything urgent has come up that we need to talk about. And then we're going to read this week's Torah portion, and then we'll have maybe a couple of quick announcements, and then we'll discuss this week's Torah portion. So, and that's our format. So you should have one of these. You might need a pen or a pencil and some paper to write on so that you could take some notes and be able to maybe mark down some comments or questions that you may want to bring up during the discussion portion. Okay? All right, so we're going to go ahead and begin by just taking a quick moment here to, why don't we get, Owen's going to grab the mic, okay? Make sure HH2 is on. Yes. Dan's got it. Okay. All right, so Owen's got the mic. He'll come around with any praise or prayer requests that we need. Praise reports and prayer requests, easy for me to say. And after we get those covered, Mandy's going to take care of that on the desk there with the admin from the chat box on the live stream. Go ahead, Rebitz and Julie.
Okay, shalom, everyone. I just want to ask prayer requests for our sister Lynn, who had hip surgery today, and she's doing pretty good. Last time I heard from her, she said that she's resolved to show up next Tuesday, perhaps not Sabbath, but next Tuesday. So she's very grateful for the prayers that we sent up for her. And then there's a few ladies in the Marco Polo who had some prayer requests, and I just want to offer up their prayers as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, Rabbi Tom.
Thank you. I have a praise report. In January, the VA sent me to see an ophthalmologist, and he said I needed eye surgery. Well, since I just got out of the hospital before that, I asked him if it could be postponed, and reluctantly he said, well, I'll see you in June. So I saw him yesterday. And he said, your vision has changed. And I thought, oh boy. And he says, but believe it or not, it's changed for the better. You don't need eye surgery at this time. Hallelujah.
Amen.
It's just, instead of going up in numbers, it went down. And he said, you're way below the threshold. Baruch Hashem.
Amen. Blessed is his name. All right, I appreciate that praise report. Very good. Okay, and that's probably a combination of not only, Yah's intervention, but also the other health changes that you've made, and all those things combined are just, bringing about, because look, we always can look on him, but you know what? Rabbi Tom looks on him and still does his part. And that's kind of the great example that he sets. He does his part, relying fully on the Father to take care of the rest. And so, I can only believe that it's a combination of his doing his part, and then the Father saying, here, I want to bless you because you do your part. And so let that be a good lesson for all of us, a good example. Okay, who's next? Okay, Christina.
So I saw Lynn today, and I told her that she's going to be watching the live stream tonight. So I wanted to say hi, because I said I would. Love you, Lynn. Hope you're having a good day and that you're out of pain. We've been praying for you.
Okay, so now we have 2 prayers for Lynn. And that's good. When the camera's back on me, I'll wave it, Lynn. Okay. We miss you, and we're so glad it all worked out. We're looking forward to seeing you maybe next Tuesday. Okay, don't rush it, but, as soon as we can get you back here, that'd be awesome. Okay, who's next? Okay, go ahead and bring it to Manny on the live stream.
All right, that was fast. Steve Waffle, prayer for a court hearing regarding the estate tomorrow, seeking favor. Charles Davis, prayers for us here. Thunderstorms are rolling our way. Prayers that Yahweh keeps them safe. Laura, unspoken prayers for her. Jana, sorry, I'm butchering that. Prayer request for her returning to work on Sunday after being out of work for 4 months, now on short-term disability. Prayer for an easy transition. And Carrie, prayers for relief from poison ivy. It's around her eyes and very irritating. Robert Wyatt, prayers for wisdom and decisions regarding his oldest daughter in Florida. And that's all I have.
Okay, amen. Amen. Okay, let me just add a couple things real quick. Praise and a prayer on my behalf. A praise that I'm here to do the study. Okay, so that's good. And the reason that's a praise is because I've not been feeling 100% for the last 2 days. So I tried to take both days off and failed at both of them. But I ended up here for a good part of yesterday and then took the rest of the day off. And then, of course, tried to take off most of today. And then I got brought in here, of course, for this, which I don't mind doing that, obviously. But I have not felt 100%. Apparently, I've got this chest coughing thing back that's, we'll hear pop up while I'm reading or or doing that. So, keep me in prayer, but I'm feeling good enough, I guess, to be here, so that really is good. I think this is not something that would be contagious. I think it's more allergies-wise. I think when certain things are blooming, I end up with some sort of a drip that gets into my lungs, and that kind of causes me this kind of a thing. Because I don't have any other symptoms that would make me not feel good. It's just this cough thing. Anyway, also praise and prayer for the patience of my family, because when I'm not feeling good, I am one ornery, snappy son of a you-know-what. So if you come up to me later, just be patient with me. I might snap at you. I don't mean it. I'm trying to do better. All of us are different when when we don't feel well. And some people come much easier. My daughter, when she's not feeling well, is the easiest person to deal with ever. She becomes the sweetest little thing. Not that she isn't all the time. Me, I'm the opposite. When I don't feel well, just stay out of my way. We're going to quarantine him until he's done. That's what we do with me. Okay. All right. But I'm here, and I'm excited to be here. I did call Rabbi Tom and ask him if he could do it, but you know what? I feel good enough to be here, and I'm excited to do this Torah portion. I do, always enjoy, especially in, going through this section in Numbers and dealing with some of the issues that are here and being able to help lead through that. Okay, so let's go ahead and open in prayer and also a prayer for the study itself, and we'll get one of the guys to raise their hand to do that. Okay, Owen's got his hand up, but the mic's over there, or you have it? Oh, he has it, okay. So Owen, go ahead and stand up.
Thank you. I was also informed of a misfortune passing of a 3-year-old child.
Yes. Okay, well, also, we definitely need to put that in prayer. I do apologize to that family. The family we've been praying for, the 3.5-year-old who is needing a liver transplant, did pass. And I've been in contact with them and offer condolences. And please keep that whole family in prayer. I mean, I'm glad that most of us have not had that experience. And so we can only imagine, how hard that would be to lose, a child that you've gotten to spend, that much time with. And but in some ways, that also brings a little bit of peace in knowing that it's not going to be this ongoing drama and trauma. But there is a resolution there, and they have a hope of a resurrection, a hope of seeing their child again, a hope of a future, okay? But please keep them in prayer that Abba would hold them close and offer them the peace that can only come from him and the comfort that can only come from him in this very, very harsh time. And it's very hard to go through these things. Thank you for reminding me, Owen. Okay, Owen, go ahead.
Heavenly Father, we thank you that you allowed us to be here, Father. We thank you for our brothers and sisters who are joining us on the live stream, Father. And Father, we have found favor in your eyes. We humbly come before thee, petitioning, Father, that you would, Father, open our hearts, open our minds, open our ears, and all of us, Father, that would to receive the instruction that will come from your anointed, appointed, or Rabbi Steve, Father. So we pray also for him, Father, that you will put your words on his lips, Father. And Father, for you know the needs of the body, Father, from jobs to sickness to people departing, Father. Help us, Father, to have complete trust and emunah, Father, that we may, Father, find ourselves worthy in your eyes and hear at the end, well done, good and trust, faithful servant. We give you all praise and all honor in the mighty name of Yeshua, our Messiah. Amen ve'amen.
Amen. Amen. All right, thank you, Owen, for opening us up in prayer. Okay, so This week's Torah portion is Shelach. Okay, and by the way, as we start getting familiar with, for those of you especially that are new at doing things Hebraically, you'll find that these Torah portions, because they are named in Hebrew, often appear spelled very differently. And so don't let that throw you. Okay, we're transliterating. This is one of my favorite questions, and I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek. You know, when people ask me, well, how do you spell, what's the right way to spell? And they'll give me a Hebrew word. And there is no right way to do it. There are more common ways to do it. But the right way is the way that gets you to pronounce it correctly. Okay, because remember, we're taking a totally different language and transliterating it into another language. So whatever way works for you to get you to say it right, that's what makes the difference, as opposed to what's the right way to spell. Because we'll get these things like with Chanukah, or whatever it is that, how do you spell it? Does it have one N? Does it have two N's? Does it have an H? Does it have a CH? Look, just pronounce it right, whatever way works for you, okay? This Torah portion is called Shelach, okay? And Shelach means send, okay? Shelach means send. And so we're going to be reading chapters 13, 14, and 15 of the book of Bimidbar, the book of Numbers. Okay, chapters 13, 14, and 15. I need 8 readers. Okay, let's try to get the adults up here first, and then we can fill that in then with Gadol, and if we have to, then we'll go to Katan B. Let's just see what we can do to get 8 readers. And the first reader needs to be somebody willing to do all the names that are in the first 16 verses. Okay, the Rebbitzin said she'll do that. Okay. Okay, let's get a few readers up here. So I got Rabbi Tom up and a couple of more. So that's 5, 6. So we almost have the 8 up here already. So we have 5 chairs. Okay, you can come up first. I know that one's Manny's. He's waiting to get up there too. So we probably have just about everybody lined up that we need. Okay, so we're going to read a traditional blessing over each reader. I'll let each reader know what verses they're reading from and to, so they know what they're reading. And then again, I encourage all of you to, if you want to, take some notes and for comments or questions for afterwards. And here we go. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rebbetzin and Julie, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, she's going to start us off in chapter 13 and read verses 1 through 16. I'm going to hand you this. I'm going to take it.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. Send 1 man from each tribe of their fathers, every one a leader among them. And by the mouth of Yahweh, Moshe sent them from the wilderness of Paran, all of them men who were heads of the children of Israel. And these were their names. From the tribe of Reuben, Shemua, son of Zakur. From the tribe of Shimon, Shaphat, son of Hori. From the tribe of Yehuda, Caleb, son of Yefuneh. From the tribe of Yissaschar, Yigaal, son of Yosef. From the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea, son of Nun. From the tribe of Benjamin, Palti, son of Raphu. From the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel, son of Sodi. From the tribe of Yosef. From the tribe of Manasseh, Gadi, son of Susi. From the tribe of Dan, Amiel, son of Gemali. From the tribe of Asher, Shethur, son of Mikael. From the tribe of Naphtali, Navi, son of Wapsi. From the tribe of Gad, Geuel, son of Maki. These are the names of the men whom Moshe sent to spy out the land. And Moshe called Hoshea, the son of Nun, Yehoshua. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. Next reader. Rabbi Tom, you want to read? You can come on up here. Okay, I'll give you the big one after you're ready and set here. Okay. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Rabbi Tom, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, he's going to take us now from verse 17 to the end of the chapter.
Thank you. And Moshe sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, Go up here into the south and go up to the mountains. and see what the land is like, and the people who dwell in it, whether strong or weak, whether few or many, and whether the land they dwell in is good or evil, whether the cities they inhabit are in camps or strongholds, whether the land is rich or poor, whether there are forests there or not. And you shall be strong and bring some of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the season of the first fruits of grapes. So they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehob, near the entrance of Hamath. And they went up through the south and came to Hebron and Ahiman and Shishai and Talmai, and the descendants of Anak were there. Now Hebron had been built 7 years before Zoan in Mitzrayim. And they came to the Wadi Eshcol and cut down from there a branch with one cluster of grapes, and they bore it between the two of them on a pole, also of the pomegranates and the figs. That place was called the Wadi Eshcol because of the cluster which the men of Israel cut down from there. And they returned from spying out the land after 40 days, and they went and came to Moshe and Aharon and all the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. And they brought back word to them and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. And they reported to him and said, "We went to the land where you sent us, and truly it flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. But the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are walled, very great." And we saw descendants of Anak there too. And the Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, while the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea along the banks of the Ardennes. And Caleb silenced the people before Moshe and said, "Let us go up at once and take possession, for we are certainly able to overcome it." But the men who had gone up with him said, "We're not able to go up against the people, for they're stronger than we." And they gave the children of Israel an evil report of the land which they had spied out, saying, "The land through which we have gone as spies is a land eating up its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in it are men of great size. And we saw there the Nephilim, the sons of Anak of the Nephilim. And we were like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we were in their eyes."
Amen, amen. Okay, thank you, Rabbi Tom. All right, Candace, and you've got your own copy there, so we can just use yours. Okay. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Candace, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, Candace is now going to take us into chapter 14 and read verses 1 through 14.
Then all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel grumbled against Moshe and against Aaron. And all the congregation said to them, "If only we had died in the land of Mitzrayim, or if only we had died in this wilderness. And why is Yahweh bringing us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become a prey? Why would it not be better for us to turn back to Mitzrayim?" And they said to each other, "Let us appoint a leader, and let us turn back to Mitzrayim." Then Moshe and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. And Yehoshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their garments. And they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, "The land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If Yahweh has delighted in us, then he shall bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which is flowing with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against Yahweh, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their defense has turned away from them, and Yahweh is with us. Do not fear them. But all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Then the esteem of Yahweh appeared in the tent of appointment before all the children of Israel. And Yahweh said to Moshe, how long shall I be scorned by these people? And how long shall I not be trusted by them with all the signs which I have done in their midst? Let me strike them with the pestilence and disinherit them, and make of you a nation greater and mightier than they. And Moshe said to Yahweh, then the Mizrites shall hear it, for by your power you brought these people up from their midst. And they shall say to the inhabitants of this land, they have heard that you, Yahweh, are in the midst of these people, that you, Yahweh, are seen eye to eye, and that your cloud stands above them. And you go before them in a column of cloud by day and a column of fire by night.
Amen. Amen. All right, thank you, Candace. Appreciate that. Okay, next up we have Tommy. All right. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Tommy, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Tommy's going to take us now from verse 15 to verse 30 of chapter 14.
Now, if you shall kill these people as one man, then the nations which have heard of your report shall speak, saying, because Yahweh was not able to bring this people to the land which he swore to give them, therefore he slew them in the wilderness. And now I pray, let the power of Yahweh be great, as you have spoken, saying, Yahweh is patient and of great loving commitment, forgiving crookedness and transgression, but by no means leaving unpunished, visiting the crookedness of the fathers on the children to the third and fourth generation. Please forgive the crookedness of this people, according to the greatness of your loving commitment, as you have forgiven this people, from Mitzrayim even until now. And Yahweh said, I shall forgive according to your word. But truly as I live, and all the earth is filled with the esteem of Yahweh, for none of these men who have seen my esteem and the signs which I did in Mitzrayim and in the wilderness, and have tried me now these 10 times, and have disobeyed my voice, shall see the land of which I swore to their fathers, nor any of those who scorn me see it. But my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit in him, and has followed me completely, I shall bring into the land where he went, and his seed shall inherit it. Since the Amalekites and the Canaanites are dwelling in the valley, turn back tomorrow and set out into the wilderness by the way of the Sea of Reeds. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and to Aharon, saying, how long shall this evil congregation have this grumbling against me? I have heard the grumblings which the children of Israel are grumbling against me. Say to them, as I live, declares Yahweh, as you have spoken in my hearing, so I do to you. The carcasses of you who have grumbled against me are going to fall in this wilderness. All of you who are registered according to your entire number, from 20 years old and above. None of you except Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Yehoshua, son of Nun, shall enter the land which I swore I would make you dwell in.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Tommy. Okay, next up is Dale. Don't put it there, please put it here. There you go. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Dale, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Dale's going to take us now from verse 31 to the end of chapter 14.
But your little ones, whom you said would become a prey, I shall bring in, and they shall know the land which you have rejected. But as for you, your carcasses are going to fall in this wilderness. And your sons shall be wanderers in the wilderness 40 years, and shall bear your whorings, until your carcasses are consumed in the wilderness. According to the number of the days in which you spied out the land, 40 days, a day for a year, a day for a year. You are to bear your crookednesses 40 years, and you shall know my breaking off. I am Yahweh, I have spoken. I shall do this to all this evil congregation who are meeting against me. In this wilderness they are consumed, and they are to die. And the men whom Moshe sent to spy out the land, who returned and made all the congregation grumble against him by bringing an evil report of the land. Even those men who brought the evil report about the land died by the plague before Yahweh. Of those men who went to spy out the land, only Yehoshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, remained alive. And when Moshe spoke these words to all the children of Israel, the people mourned greatly. And they rose up early in the morning and went up to the top of the mountain, saying, See, we have indeed sinned, but we shall go up to the place which Yahweh had spoken of. But Moshe said, Why do you now transgress the mouth of Yahweh, since it does not prosper? Do not go up, lest you be smitten by your enemies, for Yahweh is not in your midst, because the Amalekites and the Canaanites are there before you, and you shall fall by the sword, because you have turned away from Yahweh. Yahweh is not with you. But they presumed to go up to the mountaintop, but neither the ark of the covenant of Yahweh nor Moshe left the camp. So the Amalekites and the Canaanites who dwelt in that mountain came down and struck them and beat them down, even to Hormah.
Thank you, Dale. All right, Wayne. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Wayne, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of his hands. Amen. Okay, Wayne's going to take us now to chapter 15 and read verses 1 through 16.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, We have come into the land of your dwellings, which I am giving you, and you make an offering by fire to Yahweh, and an ascendant offering or a slaughtering to accomplish a vow or as a voluntary offering, or in your appointed times to make a sweet fragrance to Yahweh from the herd of the flock. Then he who brings near his offering to Yahweh shall bring near a grain offering of 1/10 of ephah of fine flour mixed with 1/4 of a hin of oil, and 1/4 of a hin of wine as a drink offering you prepare, with the ascendant offering or the slaughtering for each lamb. Or for a ram you prepare as a grain offering 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with 1/3 of a hin of oil. And as a drink offering you bring 1/3 of a hin of wine as a sweet fragrance to Yahweh. And when you prepare a young bull as an ascendant offering, or as a slaughtering to accomplish a vow, or as a peace offering to Yahweh, then shall be brought with the young bull a grain offering of 3/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with 1/2 hin of oil, and bring as the drink offering 1/2 hin of wine as an ascendant, as an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahweh. This is what is done for each young bull, for each ram, or for each lamb or young goat. According to the number that you prepare, so you do for each one according to their number. Let all who are native do so with them, and bring in near an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahweh. And when a stranger sovereigns with you, or whoever is among you, throughout your generations, and would make an offering made by fire, a sweet fragrance to Yahweh, as you do, so he does. One law is for you of the assembly, and for the stranger who sovereigns with you, a law forever throughout your generations. As you are, so is the stranger before Yahweh. One Torah and one right ruling is for you and for the stranger who sovereigns with you.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Wayne. Okay, next up is Manny. You blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. May you bless Manny, who's come up to honor Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless him and his family and send blessing and prosperity on all the works of his hands. Amen. Amen. Okay, Manny's going to take us now from verse 17 to 29.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, When you come into the land to which I bring you, Then it shall be, when you eat of the bread of the land, that you present a contribution to Yahweh. Present a cake of the first of your dough as a contribution. As a contribution of the threshing floor, you present it. Of the first of your dough, you are to give to Yahweh a contribution throughout your generations. And when you sin by mistake and do not do all these commands which Yahweh has spoken to Moshe, all that Yahweh has commanded you by the hand of Moshe, from the day Yahweh gave command and onward throughout your generations, then it shall be, if it is done by mistake without the knowledge of the congregation, that all the congregation shall prepare one young bull as an ascending offering, as a sweet fragrance to Yahweh, with its grain offering and its drink offering according to the right ruling, one male goat as a sin offering. Then the priest shall make atonement for all the congregation of the children of Israel, and it shall be forgiven them, for it was by mistake. And they shall bring their offering, an offering made by fire, to Yahweh, and their sin offering before Yahweh for their mistake. And it shall be forgiven all the congregation of the children of Israel, and the stranger who sojourns in their midst, because all the people did it by mistake. And if a being sins by mistake, then he shall bring a female goat a year old as a sin offering, and the priest shall make atonement for the being who strays by mistake when he sins by mistake before Yahweh, to make atonement for him, and it shall be forgiven him. For him who does whatever by mistake, there is one Torah, both for him who is native among the children of Israel and for the stranger who sojourns in their midst.
Amen. Amen. Okay, thank you, Manny. All right, last reader, Brianna. He who blessed our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, may he bless Brianna, who's come up down to Yahweh in the Torah. May the set-apart one bless her and her family and send blessing and prosperity in all the works of her hands. Amen. Okay, she's going to take us now from verse 30 to 41.
But the being who does whatever definitely, whether he is a native or a stranger, he reviles Yahweh, and that being shall be cut off from among his people. Because he has despised the word of Yahweh and has broken his command, that being shall certainly be cut off, his crookedness is upon him. And while the children of Israel were in the wilderness, they found a man gathering sticks on the Sabbath day. And those who found him gathering sticks brought him to Moshe and to Aharon and to all the congregation, and they put him in under guard, because it had not been declared what should be done to him. And Yahweh said to Moshe, the man shall certainly be put to death, all the congregation stoning him with the stones outside the camp. And all the congregation brought him outside the camp and stoned him with the stones as Yahweh commanded Moshe. And he died. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them to make tzitzit on the corners of their garments throughout their generations, and to put a blue cord in the tzitzit of the corners. And it shall be to you for a tzitzit, and you shall see it, and shall remember all the commands of Yahweh, and shall do them, and not search after your own heart, and after your own eyes, after which you went whoring, so that you remember, and you shall do all my commands, and be set apart unto your Elohim. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. You said 40. Oh, okay. And I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim, to be your Elohim. I am Yahweh, your Elohim.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Brianna. All right. Excuse me. The closing blessing here from the readings. Baruch atah Yahweh Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu Baruch atah Yahweh noten haTorah. Amen. Blessed are you, Yahweh our Elohim, King of the universe, who has given us a Torah of truth and has planted eternal life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. Amen. Amen. All right, let me grab the stand here. All right, thank you to all the readers. Great job. Really appreciate that. Give me a second to reset my space here a little bit. Okay, so before we start the discussion portion of the evening here, I want to just give you a couple of quick announcements, just a reminder of about a couple of things. So coming up here real quickly, we have on Thursday, July 4th, that is Rosh Chodesh HaRevi'i. Okay, Rosh Chodesh, the new moon of the fourth month. Okay, the Jews will call that Tammuz. And so we're choosing to call it HaRevi'i for the fourth. Okay, and that will be on Thursday. So the Wednesday night going into Thursday is when we switch into the next month. And so for those of you that are here, we are planning, we'll give you more details on Shabbat. We are planning to do a barbecue lunch of some sort. We'll get together for the afternoon, and we'll have a Rosh Chodesh service as a part of that. I'll have more details for you on Shabbat. I don't believe we'll be broadcasting that. I'm not sure what time we would be doing it anyway, so I do apologize for those of you on the live stream that we won't be providing that for you on Thursday. Okay. On July 14th is our picnic and mikvah. If you are planning to come for that, please let us know so we can have an idea that more people are coming and how many people might be coming so we can have ourselves prepared for that. If you want to do the mikvah, all that is necessary is that you are in line with the 8 declarations that we do. And so those can be found on the MTOI website. Just do a search on the upper right-hand corner of our homepage. There's a search bar. Just type in mikvah declarations, and you should find it that way. If not, you can contact us, and we will make it available. Okay? Excuse me. Okay. I think that'll cover for the announcements. We are still trying to get the Sukkot information up on our website. I have what looks like it might be a final draft that I'm supposed to be looking at. I've been sort of under the weather for 2 days, so I haven't really gotten that finished, but hopefully we'll have it by the end of this week. All right, so here we are dealing with Shelach, with Numbers 13 through 15, all 13, 14, and 15, 3 chapters. And so we'd like to go through a discussion of the portion here. Just out of curiosity, how many computers do we have on there? 199. Okay, so some people might be confused as to why we switched from Adobe Connect to YouTube, and that's the reason. We are running close to over 100 more people accessing the Torah Study doing it this way than we used to the other way. Okay, some people might think, well, we're doing it to save money. Well, we're not. Okay, although we will when we cancel the Adobe Connect, but we're doing it because the mission of MTOI is to try to be able to serve as many people as we can, to provide the services that we do and make them accessible to as many people as we can. So if this is making it accessible to more people, then it meets our mission and our, what I believe is our, trying to think of what the word is, but I can't think of it right now. But anyway, what our Father has mandated us to do, okay? And so I think that's an important thing for us to understand. So I know some people like the other format. I know it allowed for more people to read, but also this format, it gives much more access, and to people that wouldn't have known we were here, that happen to just go on YouTube looking for something on a Tuesday night and they find us. Okay, and so this way we can get the information to more people. Okay, so that being said, let's go ahead and have a discussion. If you're here, you can raise your hand and Owen will bring around the mic. Nate's got it now. So Nate will bring around the mic. And if you're on the live stream, Manny is watching the live stream. Let's try to go through as chronologically as we can. There's a lot to cover here in these 3 chapters. And so if we can be chronological, that would be great. And so we'll start hopefully with things coming out of chapter 13, and we'll begin with Candace.
Okay, mine comes out of the 13th chapter. It's the very last verse. And it says, we were like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we were in their eyes. I think of I've heard many times, when you stand and you're in front of an animal, they can sense if you fear them. I think in this case, that the people that were giants could sense their fear. And so these, it's like our problems. Sometimes our problems are gigantic. And they seem overwhelming and like they're going to topple us. And Hasatan can see and sense that fear in us. And so he plays on that fear. And I know with myself, at times I've just gotten so overwhelmed, I'm like, I can't think straight. And so I think that what I always need to do is to look back on the great miracles that Yahweh has done in my own life, the way he brought me here,
Amen.
and how he has brought me to MTOI, and how the whole process. And I need to keep remembering that instead of getting like the children of Israel did. They grumbled, the least little bump in the road, they were grumbling. And I don't want to be like that, and I have been like that. But I can see where, sometimes our problems can be really insurmountable. It look like nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to work out. But Yahweh promises to take care of us. And I need to remember that always, that he's the provider, and he's my protector, and he supplies all my needs according to his riches. Because I'm following him, and I'm following his son, and I love them, and he loves me more than I love him.
Amen. Appreciate that. Okay. Anybody want to comment on that comment? Okay. Well, only put your hands up first if you want to say something additionally to the issue that Candace brought up. Okay, Wayne does. Bring it over to Wayne first before we change topics. Okay, Wayne.
I was just looking at that verse too.
You can stand up and make it easier. The camera to get you.
And we were like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we were in their eyes. So I was reading that, and then reading in the last verses of 15 when it's talking about the Tzitzit, and it's talking about how it'd be a reminder of the commands, and not to seek after our own heart and look through things with our own eyes. So that's kind of what it took me back to that verse. That's what they were doing. They were seeking things not through Yahweh's eyes, but in their own heart, in their own eyes, and that's what this whole thing was about.
Okay. All right. On the same topic? Not necessarily. Okay. Nate has something to say on the same topic.
Yeah, my note was that they were worried that they weren't good enough, that they seemed insignificant. They forgot, like he was saying, and I think partially what our sister was saying, that they forgot who they were according to how Yahweh viewed them. Yahweh viewed them as his kids, and I'm going to protect you, and they lost that vision, and they gave in to that. And we can do that today, too. We could seem to think that because we're just like the last Torah portion where we could seem like, well, what we're doing is insignificant. It's not worthy of our fathers, or, my job is not good enough. And we lose sight of that, and we start to, instead of looking at what Abba's offering us, we look at our circumstances and fall short and just give up.
You made such a really good point. I hate to disagree with it. I think everything in this Torah portion here is about him, and our not thinking he can handle it. Okay? And that's really the problem. They didn't know him. Now, your point is great and does apply in some ways, and maybe to the whole grasshopper thing to some degree. But the real problem here is that they didn't think he could do what he said he would do, because they're rebelling against him. They're not obeying his voice. They're not doing what he said. He said, go, I will take care of it. Remember, he didn't say, go, you'll be able to take care of it. He says, go and I will take care of it. And so they showed that they didn't have the relationship with him that they maybe thought they did. Okay, so while your point is great, I don't know that it's exactly what's going on here. I think right here is much more about us not thinking he could do it. Okay? Because they say, did Yahweh bring us out here just to get killed? Well, if they knew that who he is, they wouldn't have any fear that they would be killed. Okay? So really the whole thing going on here is there's a challenge with them understanding him. I hate to jump to chapter 14, but it does kind of cover it in verse 3. It says, and why is Yahweh bringing us to this land to fall by the sword? They didn't understand him. And that's what's going on here in chapter 13, is they're demonstrating that they just didn't understand him. 2 people did. 2 of the men did. But the rest are like, We're like insignificant. There's giant people there. There's all these walls. Look, that's the same thing in your life. He called you and sent you on a journey. Do you trust him to get you through the journey? Now, that's where I will tie in what Nate said to what I'm saying, is that you have to trust that because he's called you, because you are his children, and he's given you a journey to go on, that you should not be worried about the things that will pop up on your path on the journey. But that's going to require you to trust him and to have that full relationship of knowing who he is and who you are in that context. Okay, so that's really the biggest problem that's going on here, is just a disconnect in understanding where we fit into what he's doing. You know, and the way you can look is this. There's an interesting part in chapter 13 and verse 27 and 28. I call this the yeah, but. They reported to him and they said, we went into the land and look, it's flowing with milk and honey. Yay, yeah, but the people who dwell there are strong and scary. Well, Yahweh did take care of all those other problems that I was going through, but I'm facing this other thing now that's way bigger, or seems bigger, or seems worse, or whatever, okay? And that's really that. We have to be careful we don't fall into the, well, yeah, he's done that stuff, but. And that's what they were going through over and over and over again in the journey is, you know, well, yeah, he did, yeah, he brought us out of Mitzrayim, and, you know, why didn't he kill us in Egypt? Well, how about focusing on the fact that he didn't let you die in Egypt? Why didn't he let us die in the wilderness? How about focusing on the fact that he didn't let you die in the wilderness? He provided all of those things in both of those scenarios. Why would he do that? Just to let you die going into the land. Obviously, you're having a problem not really knowing who you're dealing with, your relationship. And that's why he makes the point in 14:22. He says, look, wait a minute, make sure I get the right verse. Yeah, at the end of 14:22, it says, they've disobeyed my voice. Remember, the contract that they made at Sinai was they would trust him enough to do what he said, to obey his voice, and he would contract with them to take care of everything else. Excuse me. Okay? And so that's really what we're running into here. We're running into the first real big push comes to shove since Sinai of, are you going to trust him when it gets scary? Are you going to trust him when things look overwhelming? The odds are overwhelming. By the way, he did tell them that there, would be these moments where the odds would look overwhelming. Weren't they overwhelming in Egypt? Weren't they overwhelming by the sea when he parted it? Come on. But see, that's where we are too, right? We can go to, this is why I did the teaching, what are you thinking? Because I know we could look at these guys going, really? But are you any different? And that's kind of what Nate's kind of getting at too. It's like, well, are we any different when we act this way? Are we not trusting who we are within the context of who he is? And so I would combine it up that way. Okay, next question. Or do you want to continue on this? Okay, bring it to my wife.
Okay, so I had a note that I had written down to go to Deuteronomy chapter 1, and I think this answers the question, because in verse 29 in Deuteronomy 1, chapter 1, it recounts the story, and it says in verse 29, then I said to you, have no dread or fear of them. Yahweh your Elohim, who is going before you, he does fight for you according to all he did for you in Mitzrayim before your eyes, and in the wilderness where you saw how Yahweh your Elohim has borne you as a man bears his son in all the way that you went until you came to this place. And then in verse 32, it says, yet in this matter you are putting no trust in Yahweh your Elohim, and that's what you were saying, is that they weren't trusting him. They didn't. I guess they forgot, or I don't know. And then in verse 33, I think this answers it. He goes before you in the way to seek out a place for you to pitch your tents, to show you the way you should go, with fire by night and in a cloud by day. So I don't care how big those giants were. The cloud was much bigger.
Amen. Excellent connection. I wrote that down in my notes for next time, so that's good. I really like that connection a lot. The thing is that you could think, well, maybe we just got lucky, or maybe we were talented enough and skilled enough to get through this thing that we got through, and forget the otherworldly interventions, the thing that you could not do, that could never have been done by man, that he brought to bear. And so we just don't seem to connect and give him credit enough and recognize what he's doing. Of course we do. We do recognize it at that moment, but then we forget so quickly. Because we panicked in that moment and then he fixed it. Because remember, they panicked in Egypt. They panicked at the sea. They're panicking again. He's like, what do I have to do for you to get it? Well, you're not going to keep panicking all the time. What is it going to take? Okay, Brianna, same topic?
It kind of goes with exactly what you just said, is in chapter 14, verse 14, it said that you, Yahweh, are seen eye to eye, and that your cloud stands above them. It's saying that he doesn't, it's not a giant to him. He can see eye to eye, and his cloud is above him. It's like nothing to him.
Amen. So if we're grasshoppers to them, what are they to him? I like that point. That's good, Brianna. All right, who's next? Okay, I know that Owen had his hand up before, and then, nope, he changed his mind. Okay, Rabbi Tom has his hand up now.
Thank you. I was going through the list of the spies here, and one thing I think we all realize is these weren't just people chosen by lot or chosen at random. They were all leaders. And one thing that this should show us is that it's really important to vet the people that we choose to be our leader, because 10 out of 12 were not good leaders. And some of them had very significant names, but they didn't live up to their names. They were not only in total rebellion, but what amazes me is that 10 men were able to discourage the hearts of several million people. And this goes back to what you said last Shabbat about the good apple, bad apple thing. So we have to be careful. Number one, who we choose to sit under as a leader, and number two, we have to be careful of the bad apple thing. But the thing that I was wondering about these men, and correct me if you think I'm wrong on this, was their motivation. They realized that going into the land would require a change. They wouldn't be living a nomadic lifestyle anymore. There'd be things they'd have to do. They'd have to get more involved in herding animals and propagating the animals. They'd have to get involved in farming, the sowing and the reaping. They'd have to build houses. They'd have to stay in a permanent location. And maybe that thought scared them. And again, it scared them because they didn't trust Yahweh. They weren't ready to make a change.
Amen. I'm going to say, first of all, I really appreciate all your comments. Let me say this little piece, though, in addition to that, is that, they, 2 points that you pointed out that I'll start with the last one because that's one that first came up in my thoughts before I forget it, which is, I think that they still had a slave mentality. Okay? They saw themselves as, it didn't take much for the slave driver to come and just say boo, and they would just cringe and jump, and they were afraid of what looked stronger and bigger and meaner because they didn't realize that they had a protector. They weren't in that relationship. They still had that slave mentality. Now, of course, they had changed and they're now servants of the Most High, but in that service there's a lot of freedom. Okay? As opposed to slaves of Egypt where there was no freedom. Now, in this case, the other thing I would say is that when you look at the 10, I like the point you were making about how the 10 were not good leaders. Okay, so somebody last week tried to make the point of the week before, well, are we then falling into the trap of, when we talk about leadership, the way Paul was talking about leadership, of putting our trust in a man? I said, no. See, these people were putting their trust in men. They were listening to the 10. Joshua and Caleb were leaders who said, put our trust in Yah. So they were listening to men pointing more vertically up. He said, let's go, let's go. I mean, certainly we can overcome it because Yah said so. But see, when millions of people are listening to their heads, They're listening to men. Now their trust is in man. And so that's the difference, okay? If you choose a leader that you can see is pointing vertically, is submitted vertically, and is covered vertically, then you are putting your trust in someone who is a disciple of whoever it is that they're now pushing up in that direction. And Joshua and Caleb had the same trust that Moses had. And Moses had that trust directly in Yah. And so that's when we can see the difference. So yes, you can have a problem putting your trust in a man. You see millions of people did that here. And they started grumbling listening to 10 who were heads over those tribes. And we can see the problem that is. By the way, you can see also as we talk about the two houses and things over the years, and we talk about Judah and Ephraim, you see the two is Caleb and Joshua, who represent both Judah and Ephraim. Because it tells you that Caleb was from Judah and that Joshua was from Ephraim. And so you have your two leaders that stood up were representing the two houses, ultimately that we'd find when we get to Solomon and then the splitting of the kingdom with his children, with Rehoboam and Jeroboam. And so we see that happening, okay? So this is what, and again, when I say Rehoboam and Jeroboam, they're not both his children, but I understand with his, as it goes down into his descendants, and then we see the splitting, okay? But isn't it interesting to see that even back here, the two that stood up were Joshua and Caleb, who were Judah and Ephraim. Okay? Anyway, next comment, next question. Okay, Owen?
Thank you, Rabbi. Just following on your statement about the 10, would it be that they were in this having the slave mentality? Would it be that perhaps they were too afraid to trust, and they didn't intentionally, with malice, said, "We don't trust you, Yah," but rather was more of a panic and fear? And I just think about Aaron's children when the ark was about to fall, and they say, "Oh, let's make sure it doesn't fall," and then they touch it and they get destroyed on the spot. Would it be rather more of a fear and panic that perhaps they didn't have that trust that they needed, the reason why they perished and they didn't make it into the land?
Okay, so I understand your question, but in 14:35 it says, "I am Yahweh, I have spoken, I shall do to this." Sometimes they actually literally say that. And I'm not picking on them. Okay? There's a lot of stuff happening in your life that's really tough. But don't panic. Why are you panicking? Do you not understand who called you? What the plan for the calling is, that he would not put you through anything you can't get through without providing ways of escape or whatever it is? But we panic. By the way, we didn't mention this, and I'm going to take the mic over. Well, who's got the mic next? Okay, Manny's got his hand raising for the live stream. Did you notice that Hoshea's name gets changed to Yehoshua? Okay, why is that? Because what does Hoshea mean? Salvation. What does Yehoshua mean? He is salvation, or Yah is my salvation. See, they were not understanding where the salvation was coming from. So they went from deliverance to someone who understood that where the deliverance was coming from. Okay? Which I think is, critical to the understanding. Okay, Manny, go ahead.
Okay. We lost the stream for a little bit, but we're back. All right, Robert Wyatt, if Yahweh already gave promised Israel the land, why send the spies?
Why send the spies? Anybody want to answer that?
Nate does.
We need a second mic. Go ahead, Nate, go ahead. You try first because you're right there.
Deuteronomy 8:2.
Right. Okay. Well, he sent the spies because he wanted to see if they would react the way they did. Where would be the chance for them to show courage, trust, and belief if they just walked into the land and he just wiped out whatever needed to be wiped out? But let their leadership go in there and come back and see how everybody, look, there's a lot of testing of people going on in this chapter. He was testing the leaders, 10 of which failed. He was testing the people. Everybody 20 and over failed except 2. And he was testing Moses. Yahweh was not about to break his promise and wipe out all the people and start again with Moses. A lot of people say, wow, he was going to break the whole thing. No. He was trying to make sure that all of his leadership was in the right place. And after the failure of the 10 and the 2, he just wanted to make sure where Moses was at. So he said to Moses, how's this idea, Moses? Why don't I wipe out everybody and we'll start again? And see, Moses gets it. Moses understands that this is about Yahweh's name, his reputation, as understood by everyone around. That's why you can't just put tzitzit on, which we talk about here at the end of this Torah portion. You can't just claim to be a child of the living Elohim and just do whatever you want to do. I had to swallow a few words I was going to stick in there. Okay? Do whatever you want to do. Okay? You can't just do that. Why? Because you're claiming to represent him. Now Moses understood this, and Moses said, look, this people that you brought out of Egypt, the people around know that. Word spread real quick about all the things that happened in Mitzrayim. Word spread about the parting of the sea. Word spread about this pillar of cloud and this pillar of fire. And now if you just wipe them all out here, word's going to spread and say, well, hey, he wasn't able to accomplish what he did, so he just wiped everybody out. He just brought them out here to murder them all. And you got to believe that there's in the back of Moses' head, he's thinking, well, maybe that's not a bad idea. I'm just saying. But then he realized it's about him. It's about Yahweh, not about Moses. It's about Yahweh's reputation. This is where we get back into the teaching on no other name and understanding what the name is all about. He basically says to him, Yahweh, what is this going to do to your name? So there's a testing going on here for everyone, all the way up to Moses. And that's a big part of what's going on here. Okay? So let's make sure that we understand that. But the Deuteronomy 8:2 that Nate mentions is that everybody has to be tested to see whether it's in their heart to keep the commands. Not in a mechanical way, but to trust that keeping them will get you what he promised he will give you. By keeping them in obedience to his voice, he will take care of all your other stuff. And we have to understand that that's what the whole thing is all about, that trust. And in Deuteronomy 8, he goes on to say, hey, look, your clothing didn't wear out, your sandals didn't wear out, but all of this was done so that you would know that man doesn't live by bread alone, but by every word that comes forth from the mouth of Yahweh. Everybody had to be tested. And again, and again, and again they were tested. And sadly, again and again and again they failed. Anybody own that t-shirt? Okay? But thankfully, in his mercy, he gives you more chances. Even Yeshua talks about 70 times 7. Keep it going. And so he wants to, tell you, look, just keep trying, keep going, keep trying. It's not about being perfect, it's about wanting to be perfect. It's about making the effort and striving towards that set apartness, that perfection that's him. And making those little growths in that direction. Okay, what's next?
Okay, next question. Rabbi, why was there no spies sent out to represent the Levites?
Because again, the same thing had to do with the way that the Levites were selected out. The other nations were given, the other tribes were given all the other tasks. The Levites were given one, temple service. And this had nothing to do with temple service. They were not to go out there and be risked in war. They didn't fight the wars. Now, they did lead them around Jericho, sounding the shofars, but they weren't to go to battle. Okay? The army was with the other tribes. And so this was a military spying event, and so no, Levi wouldn't be doing it. Okay? And by the way, I see in my notes I wrote also that the number 40 comes up in chapter 13 and in chapter 14. A day for a year, 40 days for the 40 years. Okay, so why 40? Well, I think that we see the number 40 comes connecting to testing. Okay, Moses was going to have to take 40 days and deal with going up on the mountain. They were 40 days in the spying. You have Yeshua going out into the wilderness, 40 days again. It also has to do with giving a more fullness of the relational information. In other words, a full recon. They went into the land to get a full report. It took 40 days. To get the fullness of the Torah, it took 40 days. For Yeshua to go out in the wilderness and do his thing, 40 days. So you can see then, a day for a year, he says, and you guys are going to pay for it. Now remember, when they took a tithe, this was earlier in other chapters, when they took a tithe and redeemed it, and when they shouldn't have, they had to do what? Pay back a fifth. Well, in this case, he said, because you guys blew the 40-day testing, now you're going to do much more than just a doubling. We're going to do a day for a year. It wasn't a 40-year journey from Sinai into the land. They could get there in much shorter time. They were made to stay in the wilderness till all this was accomplished that Yahweh had said. Continue. Next question.
Carrie says, Numbers 13:20. Land was in season of first fruit of grapes. Is this different than Shavuot?
Yes. Grapes would have been more into the fall. Okay. Grapes, the thing is with grapes, well, I don't know. The grapes has a harvest that spans a lot of time. Okay. I did a lot of research when I was actually trying to figure out the calendar myself. And one of the things that, by the way, if you want to do your research, okay, I'm not sure I want to open that door. Okay. Okay, I'll throw that out there anyway. For all of you obsessive calendar people, there's a couple of questions you leave out, okay, that you're not considering in your calendars. First of all, you're not considering these are harvest feasts, so what was being harvested, and would it be harvestable in the time frame that your calendar comes up with? Because there's a verse that says that when you've completed your threshing and your wine pressing, then you're going to keep Sukkot. So will your calendar adjust for that? By the way, the Hallel one doesn't, but neither do most of the other ones that I've seen, okay? So just so you know, there's a lot of questions that are, so I looked up and did a lot of research as to what were they actually harvesting when? What would have been the crops? When would they be in the field? When would they be threshed and finished with it, etc.? And grapes actually has a long period of time in which they tend to be harvested. It's not like a small window, depending on the type of grape, depending on how things are going. So they have a much longer season than that. So I don't have a good answer for Carrie on that one. But I don't think it's Shavuot. Shavuot was definitely a grain issue.
Okay, from Amy, 13:33.
Yep.
The evil spies saw themselves as small in their own estimation, so their enemies saw them that way because of that. David didn't have that problem.
No, it's a really hard way to translate Hebrew into English. What they're trying to say here is the way we see grasshoppers is the way they see us. They were trying to give a proportional comparison. So like the way we would look at grasshoppers, they would look at us is what they were trying to say. Okay? It's just when you translate the Hebrew into English, it doesn't translate easily one-to-one that way. So again, we're using these phrases that are idiomatic to the language. So let's rephrase it. And we were like grasshoppers in our own eyes. How we would see a grasshopper, so we look to them. Okay? So hopefully that makes it a little bit more clear. So when we look at a grasshopper and we're so big and the grasshopper's like the size of my thumb, okay, well that's the way they felt like they looked to these giants that were like 9 and 10 and 11, 12 feet tall. Okay, like Aga Bashan, etc. Big guys. Okay, go ahead.
Is there some intended significance to the representative from Manasseh being selected from within the tribe of Joseph? This is the only tribe from which this happens.
Well, because you got to remember that Joseph is the only brother that's well, first of all, Joseph would need to be represented, and we're being told that Joseph has a double portion, so we need to know that this is part of the double portion. Ephraim gets mentioned individually, and Manasseh is in there representing Joseph. Because Joseph, remember, his 2 sons were given to his father to bless, so that Joseph didn't even have the option of what he needed to do with his sons, and he crossed his hands over. And yet Ephraim and Manasseh. And so he did that so that we understand that. So Ephraim gets to be looked at as a tribe unto itself, and Manasseh is the representative then of Joseph from that point of view. That's why he's there. Joseph gets the double blessing.
Awesome.
And by the way, that is covered much more fully in Discovering Your Identity. The teaching on that, okay?
Olivier and Janet Hoffman, on chapter 14:34, you are to bear your crookedness. Does this mean you are to bear the consequences of your crookedness? Your crookedness would bring them shame?
Chapter
14:34.
Okay, you got the wrong verse.
I'll blame that on Olivier.
No, wait a minute. Bear the crookedness. No, you don't have the wrong verse. Okay, I'm sorry. So I didn't see that part. I was looking about the breaking off. Okay. According to the number of days in which you spied the land, 40 days, a day for a year, you are to bear your crookedness 40 years. And you shall know my breaking off. Look, it's the Yah is not mocked. You will reap what you sow. Okay? You rejected him by rejecting the land. By the way, we don't read about it yet, but in their brilliance, they decide to go and do it anyway after he tells them not to. Because after all, one dumb move deserves a dumber move. No, we want to listen now. We're going to go in. But he already said no. He said, you're going to go 40 years and you're not going in. See, all of this is about self-sovereignty versus his sovereignty. And they're testing it over and over again to see who's going to win out. And he's saying, I'm going to win out. You can't now just choose, he did say we should go into land and we blew it, so let's just go. Yeah, but he just said not to go. You're going to wander for 40 years. Okay, this is not like the parent who says you're punished and grounded for a week and like 2 hours later you're back doing whatever. Because you showed the puppy dog eyes and you made the face and you nothing was changing. When Yah says, this is it, guess what? That's it. All right, next question.
Tom would like to know, chapter 13, are they the same Nephilim as in Genesis 6?
I don't know if it's the same exact ones, but yes, it's referring to the same beings, the same race of beings as it's being referred to in Genesis 6:3. Okay?
Okay, Olivier, Janet, chapter 14, verse 44. Will this be like when we do things in our own way without the counsel of Yahweh?
Say it again, where?
Chapter 14, verse 44.
Okay, but they presumed to go up to the mountaintop, but neither the ark of the covenant of Yahweh nor Moshe left the camp. Okay, so what happened? The Amalekites and Canaanites who dwelt there came down and smote them all. Brilliant. Geniuses. Okay, all right, so we see that that's what's going on here. So yes, when we presume to make our own call without following the instruction and guidance that comes from above, generally it goes badly. Okay? They were told not to go, and then they went. But they presumed to go anyway. But notice what it says, neither the ark or nor Moses went to go. These things need to go up front. Follow the leader, don't follow your own leadership. Next question.
Marie asks, on chapter 13, verse 28, who were the descendants of Anak?
Chapter 13:28.
Yes, sir.
Well, he's basically just saying that this was it's trying to tell you that these were those that were known as the giants, the bigger beings, the Anakim and the Nephilim. Okay? So these were the descendants of the usually the people was named after whoever was the first one. So Anak was the one in this. These are the children known as the Anakim. Okay?
Regarding that, Nikolai would like to know, were there actual giants, or did they just report that due to their fear of inadequacy?
Oh, no, there were giants. That's where we get Og of Bashan and Goliath. We got some big guys. We got some giants. We got guys sleeping on 15-foot beds, okay, or 17-foot beds, and they needed it. Okay, these are big guys. That's why we're told, see, by the way, the answer to that question is verse 33, because telling you that this was the Nephilim and the Anakim tells you they really were giants, as opposed to just saying they just were intimidated. But because these are the sons of the Anakim, these are the Anakim and the Nephilim, that's where you get guys like Og of Bashan and Goliath. These are big guys. Okay?
Okay, Marie would like to know, 14:10 through 11, when Yahweh spoke, did all the people also hear what he said?
I'm just reading the verse. Give me a second. No, this is going only directly to Moses. And that started, by the way, at Sinai when they said, we don't want to hear from him directly. Okay? Now, they're standing out there and he hears all of them, and then he tells Moses what to tell them. Okay? Because he doesn't say, how long shall I be scorned by you? He says, how long shall I be scorned by these people? He's talking to Moshe. Okay? And then Moses has to convey this to them.
Catherine would like to know, with all the grumbling and complaining, were they not bordering on slander against Yahweh?
No, the whole thing was slander. Actually, the evil report, let's go to that. Nobody has really brought that up in terms of the key. The word evil report really has to do with slanderous report. Okay, the Hebrew actually is translated better as slanderous. So sometimes the word evil has to do with the bending or twisting of Torah, but in this case, it's the bending and twisting of the truth, of the reality there. It's a slanderous report. So yes, this is not bordering on, this is completely a slanderous report. Yahweh said it was one way, they said it was a different way.
Okay.
Okay?
This question is from Rick. Is there a similarity between Joshua and Caleb and David when he went before Goliath?
Yes, a complete similarity in those two. I mean, because neither one of them was worried about the giant in front of them. They knew that Yahweh was sovereign. And David was like, what's going on here? Yahweh's sovereign. What are you guys all standing around? So what if he's big? Let's go out there and deal with this, Philistine. Okay? And so not a real problem there. But now on the same token, you see, but we have the problem going back to, I'm going to combine up what you just asked and the question right before that. We have the yeah, but. Okay? What I said earlier. Well, yeah, he said it was filled with milk and honey, and it is. Well, yeah, he's done all these miracles in our lives, but what about this one's worse, or this one's bigger? I don't see how he's going to do this one. And that's where Caleb and Joshua and David were different. David said, no, the same one who did the Mitzrayim plagues and brought them out of Egypt, the same one who parted the sea, the same one who destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, the same one that won all the battles for them where all the other enemies died and nobody from their side died. That same one is sovereign over everything. And if I'm doing what is his will to do, I shouldn't have any fear. So David wasn't afraid. Big giant guy coming at him. Armed with just a slingshot and a stone. What do you really need to when you have Yah on your side? No weapon formed against me shall prosper. And he could use almost anything. Okay?
Jack would like to know, in Numbers 15, where would the grain come from for the offerings? Would they have hauled it with them or bought it? It's easy to think it was just a miracle, but to think of the logistics.
Chapter 15?
Numbers 15.
I'm telling you, but chapter 15 and Numbers 15?
Yes, sir.
Verse 1 tells you, when you've come into the land of your dwellings, which I'm giving you, then you're going to have harvests and you're going to make offerings. So it says, when you come into the land. So then you're going to settle down and you're going to have harvests and you're going to have fields and you're going to have grain offerings and you're going to have mistakes that you make and you're going to have sin offerings. You can do all these different things. Okay? Yeah, the land. So it says, is that the land? Yeah, when they come into the land of your dwellings, which I'm giving you. That's how you know which one it is, the one I'm giving you. Of course, we're years away from that at this point, but he's saying, look, but when you do, This is what you're going to need to do. Now, of course, he planned to give them this instruction right away because right away they were supposed to go in. But now they're going to have to wait 40 years. Oh, by the way, when we were talking about David and Joshua and Caleb, in chapter 14, verse 24, it said that Caleb had a different spirit. His intrinsic nature was different. It was Yah's nature. He had a Yahweh-natured spirit. There we say the Ruach HaKodesh. Well, there it is. We see that it exists and it's flowing in those days. People that were led of his spirit. Now, the Ruach HaKodesh is not mentioned that way here. But we do know that he had a different spirit than the one that was leading the spirit of rebellion that was in the other 10. Okay, go ahead.
Dolores would like to know in chapter 15, between verses 22 and 27, those two verses, she's confused and wants to know what the difference is between those two verses.
Okay, so 22 and 27?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so 22 says, and when you sin by mistake and do not do all these commands which Yahweh has spoken to Moshe, all that Yahweh has commanded you by the hand of Moshe from the day Yahweh commanded, that's okay. Then it shall be, if it is done by mistake without the knowledge. This is without the knowledge of the congregation, all the congregation shall prepare, etc. So this is something that all the congregation shall do here. Now in verse 27 it says, and if a being sins by mistake, then he shall bring, this is an individual. Okay? It's an individual response versus a congregational response.
Awesome.
Okay.
Angelique, why do we have so much of an issue trusting Yah after all we have seen him do, just like the children of Israel? How do we get that trust?
Okay, the answer to the first question is because we're dumb as dirt and stubborn and thick-necked, right? We're stiff-necked Israelites. Okay, how do we get it? We get on our face and on our knees and we just humble ourselves and say, Abba, help me to just totally trust you. Help me to let go of my fears. I have to tell you right now, and this right now is no different than any other right now I could have said in the last 56 years of my life. Well, I guess I was too young to be thinking about it much of my life, or any time in the last several thousand years, all the way back to this moment here and all the way back to probably the very beginning in the garden. All right? Every problem you have, to one degree or another, is either caused by or made incredibly worse because you are ruled by fear. I counsel every day nothing but people who are just absolutely ruled by fear. Marriages that are being destroyed because they're ruled by fear. People working in their jobs because they're getting, that's every relationship. Parents with their children. Whatever it is, fear. Congregation members with the leadership, fear. We have so much because everybody is making decisions to one degree or another because of fear issues. There's absolutely no doubt about it. So when you ask, how do we overcome it? I haven't figured it out. The body is absolutely cursed with a cancer that is metastasizing through their bodies, their whole system, called fear. And we just have to figure out a way to let it go. Start trusting him and then trusting each other. But Rabbi, you don't understand. I've been taken advantage of so much. Stop with the but. Don't do the yeah, but thing. That's already in here. We see that so many times. You've been doing that your whole life, and how is that working for you? You're miserable. Why don't you try it the other way? Stop being so afraid. But it'll go bad. Do you not realize that 90-something% of all things you think will go bad, if it did, you'd fix it, it wouldn't be a big deal? If it even happened. Statistics were put out many years ago by a guy named Dale Carnegie. He had a book, I think it was called something like How to Stop Worrying and Start Living or something like that. And then his research showed that over like 85 or 90-something% of all things people worry about never even happen. And of the few percent that does, Another 90-something% of those turn out to be not a big deal and you can handle it. The things that really end up being bad is such a small percent. Why do you spend so much time worrying about when 90-something% of the things you're worrying about are never going to happen or be a big problem? But by worrying, you can make it into a problem. You don't trust each other, you're going to have a terrible marriage. You don't trust each other, you're going to have a terrible relationship with your children. You don't trust each other, you're going to have a terrible relationship with your leadership in your congregation. You don't trust each other, you're going to have a terrible relationship with your friends in the congregation. But you're all being ruled by fear. But don't feel bad like, oh, it's everybody you read about in this book, except for a very, very small handful of people, like Joshua and Caleb, King David. But didn't David, do a census he shouldn't have done? Had a moment too, didn't he? Okay? We can all have those moments. But it's one thing to have a moment, it's another thing to be ruled by it. And some of you are just completely, I don't know what the right word is, you're just completely disempowered. You've lost all ability to move forward because you're so just wrought with fear, insecurities, doubts. And you can't move forward like that. Thankfully, I've been blessed where I don't have that personality that tends to be that way. But for me, I look at you who go through that, and I don't know how could you let yourself suffer like that? I don't know. You are causing yourself so much pain for things that actually aren't real yet and might not even happen. It's like, why? Oh, well, I'm afraid I'm going to be miserable. You're already miserable. Why don't you be happy until the miserable thing happens? And then maybe if it does end up being miserable, you can be miserable then. But he's going to leave me, but she's going to leave me, but he's going to cheat, but she's going to cheat, but he's going to this, but she's going to that. And what if he doesn't? And what if she doesn't? Your fear is going to wreck the deal anyway. Am I making stuff up, or does this make any sense? You're already making like a self-fulfilling prophecy, so to speak. You're causing it to happen. That's the same thing going on here. We see all this fear, all this doubt. Go listen to the Fear of Yahweh teaching over and over again until you get it, till it just seeps into your bones. That's the only thing because what did I tell you in that teaching? If you fear him, you'll never be afraid of anything or anyone again except him. But you're going to have to listen to that teaching over and over until it gets there, because you don't trust him. No, Rabbi, I trust him. I don't trust my husband. Yeah, but you're not trusting him. Maybe if your husband really is whatever it is that's so bad, maybe you're better off without him. Just like the person that, if I do that, Rabbi, if I work on Shabbat, if I don't work on Shabbat, my boss will fire me. Well, maybe he's got a better job for you. Don't you trust him? But I'll lose my job. Oh, well, he's not able to give you a better one. But I'll lose my spouse, but he's not able to give you a better one. But I'll lose my children. He can give you other people that are better than children. You could be in your 60s or 70s and find that you end up meeting somebody in a congregation that needs a mother or a father that you're the right age for and would look to you in that way, and you can look to them in that way. Are you not trusting him? What's your price? I trust him until. I trust him except up to this point. Are you trusting him with everything, is what he says. He wants you to trust him with everything. You are to love him with all your might, your strength, your being, and love everybody else less, and fear nothing. But you guys are in a panic all the time. You know what that does to your cortisol levels and everything else in your system that is just wrecking your health and your body? Being in constant fight and flight mode because of the stress, because you're afraid all the time? Stop being afraid. You know, I remember being in school and going to take exams and watching everybody panicky, freaked out about to take a test. And I'd look at them like, what are you freaked out about? Well, I'm afraid I'm going to fail. I said, did you study? No. So what are you afraid of? You're probably going to fail. I don't understand. I always knew within probably 5 points what I was going to get on a test. And I was never afraid. I knew exactly what I was going to get. And if the test happened to be a little easier than I thought, I'd get a little higher, a little harder, than maybe a little lower. But I was really close all the time. I knew how much I studied because I was comfortable in owning that I did what I did and I'm going to have what I have because I own my effort. So what are you afraid of? Do everything the best you can and say, that's good enough. It has to be. The results will still be the results. I mean, you guys are like the people that, you know, chomp on something, break a tooth, and then you don't want to go to the dentist to find out you broke your tooth. But your mouth is all swelled up and hurting, but you're afraid to go to the dentist. Why? Because I'm afraid he's going to tell me I broke my tooth. So if you don't go, your tooth won't be broken? See, that sounds insane, right? But how's that any different than the rest of the stuff you guys are doing? I mean, seriously. Well, I don't want to talk to Rabbi. Why? Because he might tell me I need to change or I'm wrong or this. Well, but either you are or you're not. The difference doesn't make if you come to me and I tell you or not. Either you are or you're not. Either you need to do something to change or you don't. Look, if you're not happy where you are, well, then you deserve to stay where you are if you're not willing to do something. And I've had people come to me and I tell them what they need to do and they don't want to do it. And I'm saying, fine, then I don't want to hear another word out of you whining about where you are. If you're not willing to do something about it, then stop complaining. Do we end up in a sermon? I'm sorry. Okay. But I mean, look, every week, every part of this Bible, you're going to see the same stuff. Human beings struggling with fear and doubt and trust and belief. And struggling with some sort of authority issue. Well, you know, we're going to blame the 10 guys, it's their fault. No, you could have listened to the other 2. Everybody didn't have to go on the bandwagon of the 10. Well, you know, but if there was 10 of them and the 2, the 10 must be right. The 2 guys can't be right. I mean, the majority rules, right? No. They fed into the fears. If you read the way the chapter reads out, they really stirred up the people and they started saying all these horrible things and they scared them out. I mean, and Caleb's trying to say, whoa, hold on. No. It's okay, let's go. Some of you need to move here, but you're afraid. I'm not saying anybody needs to move here. I'm just saying, but you need to. Not all of you out there watching, but some of you need to, or some of you just need to move, period. You need to uproot yourself because where you are is just not working. And that means physically, or it could be out of a relationship or whatever. You need to make a move. Some of you need to figure out how to fix where you are because the moving's not the answer, so that would be running away. You need to get in the trenches and fix the thing. But how do you know which is which? You talk to somebody. You get counsel. Because, see, if you're moving to run away, you're making a mistake. If you're moving to run towards, that could be good. Sometimes you need to make a move towards. They didn't want to go into the land until they realized they had screwed it up. Now all of a sudden, like, okay, we're going in. No. You don't run away. You move in the direction towards. And so if you call me up, I want to make sure that your move is because it's something you're moving towards, not something you're running away from. If there's something you're running away from, you might need to fix that first and deal with what it is because you're having a fear problem. But how do you know which is which? Call. Maybe you need to escape from something. That's not running away. Maybe you're in an abusive, terrible place. So then the counsel would be for you to go to run towards something and escape out of something. It takes counsel But I don't trust counsel and leadership and all that stuff. Well, then you're stuck. Just because it's worked badly before doesn't mean it'll work badly forever. Find somebody that you can trust and see if that'll work. Otherwise, stop complaining. Own where you're at. Because all you're going to do is whine and complain and do nothing. Anybody know anybody, and it could be the person you look in the mirror at every day or somebody else you know, but who knows what they need to do, has the full capability to do it, and isn't doing it? And why? Because we have fear issues. And some of you know you need to talk to leadership and you don't. But you need to. Anyway, what else we got? After that, I don't know what else to do after that. You know.
Love it, love it, love it. Okay. Where was I? Robert Wyatt, chapter 14, 13 through 19. Moshe prays for people even though they wanted to stone him. Would this be what Yeshua is talking about in Matthew 5, 43, 44?
Probably to some degree. That's in 543, it says, you heard of old, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. And I say to love your enemies and bless those cursing you and do good to those hating you. Pray for those insulting you and persecuting you so that you become sons of your Father in the heavens because he makes the sun rise on the wicked, etc., etc. Could be something that he's referencing there. Not in a direct way that we can be sure, but certainly it does appropriately connect. All right, look, we've got only so much time left here. I want to make sure to cover a couple of things. We might get some more questions. Let me just cover a couple of things real quickly here. Because there's some important things right here at the end that need to be covered. Okay, so in chapter 15 and verse 30, it says, but the being who does whatever defiantly, whether he's a native or a stranger, he reviles Yahweh. Okay, so when you do stuff in defiance, well, I don't care what Yahweh said, I'm doing it anyway. He thinks this is a reviling. Just keep that in mind. Now, right after that, we get the episode with the guy gathering sticks on the Sabbath. So he's telling you this was a reviling. This was defiantly. So it's just being brought up as an example of what was just said. Okay? Now, it may not have happened immediately after that, but certainly it could have. But I'm just saying the point is, here's somebody who just runs out there and gathers sticks. But notice something. Those who found him brought him to Moshe and to Aaron and all the congregation and put him under guard because they didn't know what to do. In other words, they at least had enough sense and wisdom here to not do anything themselves, but to let leadership decide what to do. That's a lesson to all of us there to a certain degree, okay? But this is again, as it comes through, this is a Deuteronomy 17 type of thing. They're bringing the person who they don't know what to do with to the leadership to make the decision. Just like you read in Deuteronomy 17, when an issue comes up that you don't know what to do, and you go to the leadership, and then you do what they say. So then what we see happening, and I want to just kind of connect this in, because this is the important piece here, is we have the Tzitziot. And if I haven't messed anybody up and got you mad at me yet, so we'll do it now, okay? In chapter 15 and verse 38, we know that this, hopefully if you're a tzitzit wearer, you know what these verses are so that you can share them with people in case they ask you the question, what is that hanging from your clothing? So you should have an answer for that, okay? You should also know that it's connected to Matthew 9:19, when Yeshua rose and followed him and his son taught ones to and see a woman with the issue of blood. And she came from behind and touched the tzitzit of his garment. So you can connect those two things together. You have Numbers 15:38, and then you have Matthew 9:19, 20, and going forward. Okay, that little piece there. Now, let's look at what it says here, just to be clear, because I looked at a magazine that must be out there that had people, you see this all over Facebook, you see it all over YouTube and everywhere else, people selling their multicolored, beaded and spangled and blinged The reason I say bling is somebody actually wanted us to carry their tzitzit, and the name of the thing was bling your fringe or something like that. If you're thinking of a fringe as bling, you've missed the point. Okay, your tzitzit are not, they're not a clothing or fashion statement. They're not an accessory to your clothing or fashion. They are an important reminder of who is in charge and who you are submitted to, and that you're to keep his commandments. Let's just remember that. So I had to respond to that person and say, I don't think we're wearing them for the same reasons. And then the person got immediately horribly offended, which is fine. What can you do? Okay. Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, make tzitziot on the corners of their garments throughout their generations. And put a blue cord in the tzitzit of the corners, and it shall be for you a tzitzit, and you shall see it, and shall remember all the commands of Yahweh, and shall do them, and not search after your own heart and your own eyes, after which you went whoring. By the way, that's exactly what they do in making the tzitzit. They're searching after their own heart and their own eyes to make them look the way they want them to look. I've often said, if he wanted them to be like puke, brown, and green, I would make them whatever he said to make them. I don't care if they clash with anything I ever wear. They are a functional piece of my clothing. They are there to remind me to keep his commandments. I don't care what they look like. Now, that being said, I want them to look like whatever he said. When I say I don't care what they look like, meaning I have no personal preference that they should look like anything. So now what should they look like? Well, we know we put one cord of blue in it. And by the way, it's not just blue, it's a blue called Tallit. It's a specific shade of blue. And the ones I wear are from Israel with their best guess of what the Tallit is. So I actually have the Tallit ones. Whether they are or not, everybody can guess. But this is something we have by Jewish tradition going down the centuries, how they made the particular dye with the particular shade of blue. Because it's not the word for blue, it's Tallit, which is like you would have navy or teal or all different midnight blue and sky blue, right? Lots of different blues. This is called Tallit. Okay, so the Tallit is a particular color blue. Now, people will say, well, it doesn't say what to do with the other string, so we can do whatever we want. Why would you assume that? See, because you can go to the store, you can go to like a Michael's or whatever wherever you live that, it's like an artsy store that has all of the different colored threads of the rainbow that you could ever want, fairly, inexpensively. Because nowadays, to make anything dye to different colors, no big deal. They can dye things any color they want. Well, back in those days, dyeing something a color was very, very costly, was a very big process. And that's why, do anybody know that there was somebody that sold purple? Okay, Lydia. And she was a wealthy woman, wasn't she? Because it took wealth to be able to, and it was an expensive thing to make the dye and then sell it, and they made a lot of money on the dye. So dyeing things, a color was a big deal. So it is much more logical from the Peshat. Okay, we're going to do that little quick. Peshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod. 4 levels that Judaism or the Jews have thought that the scriptures are written in 4 levels of understanding. They call it Pardes, which is an acronym for Peshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod. So the Peshat is a simple, straightforward understanding. Okay? Like the simplest, basic way you could possibly understand the verse. The literal, simplest way. The remez would be the hinted at. Okay, the drash would be more the allegorical, and the sod, the hidden. So let's look at it from a peshat, kind of point of view. The most logical, simple things, culturally knowing what things were like back then, would have been to do nothing to the other strings. That's logical, because that would be the easiest, least expensive thing to do. Because it's already going to cost you to put the blue thread in with the Tallit. And so to have the strings. Now, by the way, how many strings does it say to use? It doesn't. How does it say to attach them to your clothing? It doesn't. Does it say to put wraps and knots in them? It doesn't. So how do we know what to do? We don't. So then what do we do when we don't? Well, in Genesis, we're told that a lawgiver or a teacher of the law would not depart from Judah's feet throughout the generations. So I would put forth that we might want to inquire of how our Jewish brothers do this, since they were given the oracles, as Paul would say. And so when we look to Judah, by the way, I think it's really funny how a lot of the people that make the rainbow-colored tzitzit, where they put in whatever colors they want, they still tie them the same way Judah does. But they'll say, well, we're not bowing down to Judah and doing just what they do, but you still tie them the same. It's just so funny how they do that. And our Jewish brothers have a way to tie them. Now, they have several different ways they tie them. There's different ways that they've gone through over the years. But I would say that that would be one of the safest ways to go about it, is the way our Jewish brothers are doing something that we don't know how to do. We're lacking the information. Don't take that as freedom just to do whatever you want. I think it's very important. It also communicates something very different. And when you're wearing jeweled, beaded, and braided, all kinds of colorful things, nobody's going to know what that is. They'll think it's just a clothing statement, a fashion statement. But when you see it this way, the white and the blue, and you can see mine here, but when you see the white with the blue, and the Jewish people are wearing it the same way, and some people say, oh, the Jews don't wear the blue. They do now. Not all of them, but they're getting there. They used to, they stopped. You know why? Because it was very hard for them to afford the blue over the centuries, and as they traveled, to be able to get access to it as they were dispersed everywhere. So then a ruling was made just to wear white until now, by the way, after doing that, they lost touch with where the blue came from even, the Tallit. And now they've rediscovered, at least they think they have. And so I'm comfortable with that. I don't have that anti-Semitic part in me that a lot of you still have. Judah's not right about everything. As a matter of fact, they're wrong about a lot of things, but I still would look to them for opinions on things I don't have any other source for. And I don't have any other source for the tzitzit. And so let's just work with that. So my recommendation is that you should be wearing them with white and one blue. All white and one blue. Well, why white? Because they would have chosen the best lambs, the purest lambs, just like remember when you had the problem with Jacob. And Jacob was with Lavan. And Jacob said, I'll take the spotted because they're less valuable, they're less desirable. And then they all ended up spotted. Right? Remember that? Because the white was the more desirable, the more pure, the more... So I would assume, I think it's a reasonable assumption, that they would have found the whitest string or wool that they could make them out of and put one string dyed blue. So let's just remember that just because you, in your brilliance of doing this for 5 minutes, thinks that it doesn't say what to do, that now gives you permission to do whatever you want. Actually, I would be even more concerned about what I'm doing when it doesn't say it clearly, because that gives me more chances to be in trouble, not less. That's when you might want to find a Deuteronomy 17 person and say, what is the ruling for this thing that I don't know how to do? And let's understand also, it says, put them in the corners of your garment. Guess what? Any of you wear a cornered garment? Not generally. Our clothing, because of the way we can make them these days with the machines we make them, are complete, that we can pull them over our heads and they're round in the opening, like a shirt that you would wear, or the waistband of your pants. See, back then they wore cloths with holes in them that you would layer over yourself and put your head through that had corners on them. A rectangular garment that you would put your head through with corners. And they would wear robes and layers of these type of garments. Today we call that garment, if you were to wear it if you were a Jewish person, a Tallit katan, a small Tallit. The bigger Tallit would be the one you wear over your shoulders, like the mantle that you see with Elijah and Elisha. When he said I was going to throw his mantle, he was probably his Tallit. The Talit's whole purpose is to have 4 corners with tzitzit in it. And by the way, if you're wearing the Tallit with the tzitzit and it also on your clothing, it's kind of redundant. You wear one or the other. They have the purpose of one or the other. You don't need them on both. But you need to be wearing something with the tzitzit. And so I will have said for today, in modern times, because we don't have that kind of garments, either go get yourself a Tallit Katan, or put them on your clothing so they're in the same positions that the Tallit Katan would have them in. So if you put a rectangular garment with your head through it over your body, you would have 2 tzitzit on your front of your hips and 2 tzitzit right in the back of your hips, because the sides would meet right by the sides of your hips. So they actually be pretty close together. Just a little bit in the front and a little bit behind of your hip, because that's where the front of the garment and the back of the garment, if we were wearing a rectangular garment, would lay with the corners. They'd be on your side. Also, let's notice, he says that these are to be for you to remember, so that you remember and do all the commands. I'm going to make an argument that they needed to be visible, so that they were for not just for you, but for everybody around you to see. Excuse me. Because there are some people out there, Messianic, Hebrew roots, Torah teachers, whatever. Sorry, didn't mean to have that little tone of voice. Who claim to be teachers of the Torah in the context of Messiah. And they're not wearing tzitzit. Or they'll say they're wearing them underneath their clothes, not to be seen. They have them tucked in. Or they're wearing the rainbow ones, or whatever. I'm not really sure where they're getting all that authority from, but I think they're missing the point. We see also in our Jewish brethren that they wear the tzitzit where they can be seen. Now, there are some today that have chosen to do it differently, and I've seen that habit going, and it's very disappointing. We do have some that are starting to wear it inside. We also have some that are showing that they prefer to wear the kippah over the tzitzit. I was wearing my tzitzit in New York, 10 years ago. One of my Jewish brothers came over to me and goes, he points at my hips, he goes, I see the tzitzit and no kippah. What's up? What's the deal? I said, Torah, Talmud. They said, oh, okay, got it. That's all it took. Torah says wear the tzitzit. Talmud says wear the yarmulke. Now, I'm not against you wearing the yarmulke. I just don't feel that I don't wear it because I like to. When I wear it, I like to stir the conversation, and when I don't wear it, I like to stir the conversation. Because I don't believe that it's a problem from that point of view. But I have a Torah command to wear the tzitzit. I don't to wear the yarmulke. And you know what? The person just said, "Oh, that was the end of the discussion. No problem at all." Probably thought I was a Karaite Jew. Which means I keep the Torah, but I don't keep the Talmud. But they understood. But you know what they didn't have a problem with? They didn't look at my tzitzit and go, what's with all those colors? What's with all those beads and things? What are you doing? This is very serious to me. They would look at me like, why would you goof off with that and make it into, because they'll think you're messing around with something they take very seriously. And you should too. All right, so now that I got everybody mad at me that wants to wear their rainbow tzitzit and everything else, this is good. All right? Look, you don't have to listen to me. But if you're telling everybody that I'm your teacher, if you believe I'm anointed, appointed, if you are discipling with me, you better get your tzitzit fixed. If you're 20 years and above and you've been baptized, you've been immersed, you better have them on all the time. I wear them in the house. I wear them out of the house. I wear them all the time. When I get dressed, it's part of what I put on. I'm not going anywhere without them. Why? Is there any place you need to go where you don't need to be reminded to keep the commandments? Of course, you're going to need to always be reminded. By the way, a lot of you try to understand this whole concept. It's very simple. Anybody ever heard about, maybe as a kid, putting a string around your finger to remember something? Maybe the generations today, they don't know about that. But older generations know about, hey, put a little string on your finger. Then you sit there going, what's that there for? I forgot already. Anybody ever do that? I did. Okay? The tzitzit are the original string around the finger. They're there to be worn so you remember something. But you shouldn't forget what they're to remind you. They remind you to keep the commandments. You start getting all afraid and panicky, grab a hold of your tzitzit and remember, oh, wait a minute. I'm a child of the living Elohim. What am I afraid of? By the way, it's easier for me to see yours than for me to see my own, so you should be wearing them for me. If you're not wearing them, you're being very selfish. Because I have to twist my head and my neck funny to kind of look down and see mine. I can reach down and know they're there, but to see them on yourself isn't so easy. But to see yours, no problem at all. If they're on and they're visible, and you didn't make them like 1.5 inches long so they would just hide under your shirt, what are you afraid of? Are you ashamed? Oh, the guys are all like, oh, I could just see the guys at work now. So what? Why is that a problem? You know, some of you will be saying, man, I wish there was a way to start up a conversation about Torah with these guys. Put your tzitzit on. That might start a conversation. Ladies will appreciate that this is for the guys to learn what it's like to have men not look you in the eye. Ladies know what that's like. Now the guys will know what that's like, because guys will look at you, but they're looking down at your tzitzit trying to figure out if they should say something or not. And you start to notice that you can actually notice that the guy's eyes are not looking you in the eye. Guess what? The ladies know that all the time. You don't think they catch you. They do. But you ain't looking at their tzitzit. But we know now what that looks like, what that feels. I've actually had to say to a guy one time, it's okay, you can ask. Because he was staring at my tzitzit, but he didn't say anything. And I kept catching him kind of looking over. And I said, no, it's okay, you can ask. And he goes, what? What? About these? I know you want to ask. It's okay. Okay, so what's the deal with that? And as soon as I say, well, you know in the Bible where it says, the conversation, his eyes glazed over. That's all you go, you know in the Bible where it says? And then I don't say anymore because, I mean, I do finish my sentence. I say, in Book of Numbers where they had to wear strings on their garments and with the woman with the issue of blood, and I point that out, that's all. And usually they don't want to know any more than that. Anyway, I just want to make sure we covered that because that's an important thing. Because still we have an awful lot of people walking this walk that are not wearing their tzitzit. And by the way, if you're not really walking the walk, don't wear your tzitzit because you're going to embarrass him. Because the tzitzit are a public declaration that you are a child of the living Elohim and that you are submitted to his Torah. And if you're going to wear your tzitzit and walk into stores and restaurants on Saturday or shoot off your foul mouth in front of whoever, out there in public or whatever it is you're doing that you shouldn't be doing, while you're wearing your tzitzit, aren't you bringing him shame? So if you're not ready to bring him glory and honor and not shame, don't put him on. But shouldn't you just be ready to not bring him shame and put him on? Isn't that why you're here? Isn't that why you're doing studies like this? Or you just thought it'd be something to do because you were bored? Put them on and then walk the walk right. The best you can. You'll make mistakes. But walk it out. Wear them. Don't be ashamed. And guys, I'm going to tell you in case some of the people maybe online are worried about this stuff. I have been asked very few times in, I don't know how many years I've been wearing them, 25, whatever. I've been wearing 20 years at least. Okay? I can't even, I could probably count on just a couple of hands how many times anybody's actually asked me about them. They want to, and they'll look at them, but they might not say anything. So don't be so afraid of it. Anyway. You guys, it's funny? Same guys who won't wear the tzitzit want to wear a big Yeshua t-shirt. Because that's cool. Or I'm an Israelite, or some other funny little saying that they want to put on their t-shirt. Or an MTOI t-shirt, but you won't wear a tzitzit. I'd almost tell you you're embarrassing me putting on an MTOI shirt and no tzitzit. Don't wear my shirts without your tzitzit on. They make me embarrassed. Don't claim to be one of us and you don't put your tzitzit on. Anyway, did I mess everybody up, Manny?
Pretty much.
Okay, good.
Can I piggyback a couple of questions regarding tzitzit?
Yeah, real quick, go ahead.
Okay, somebody wanted to know something about is there anything having to do with excessive length, and how do you safely wear them when you work somewhere in a machine shop and stuff?
Okay, good point. Okay, so there's a couple of issues that we do have to cover with the tzitzit. Okay, one is The Pharisees were having a problem, and Yeshua was covering this in Matthew 23, where they wore their tzitzit exceptionally long because the longer they were, the more righteous they were, or something like that, okay? Look, make them long enough that they can be seen. As long as you're not having the attitude that mine are longer than yours, that makes me more righteous, you're not going to have a problem, okay? So I would say make them long enough that they come to underneath, out from under your shirt, if you like to wear a shirt outside, so that they can be seen and they can reach down and grab a hold of them. The ones that we make, if you want to get that'd be a good sort of example of what size to make them. Now, you can make them a little shorter or you can make them a little longer. The issue doesn't come up today because remember, they were doing it because it was in that day a status symbol based on how big or how long your tzitzit were. We don't have that problem today. Now, the second question you asked is, if you have a safety issue, tuck them in. Okay? Wear them and tuck them in, because that is actually legitimate. If you are working with equipment where your tzitzit can get caught in it, you need to wear them in for that period of time only. Okay? Some of you have jobs where you have to wear a uniform. And the only way to, whether you're police or medical, whatever, you have to wear your uniform. Military. Okay, wear them in. Because then that's a situation where you have no choice because of a particular function that is there with the job. But otherwise, in every opportunity, wear them out, where they're functionally helpful to everyone. Okay? So if your job has a uniform where you cannot wear anything but exactly 100% their uniform and their uniform only, wear them in. If your job is not safe to wear them out, wear them in. But as soon as you're off the job, pull them back out where people can see them. They could be out where people can see them on the way to work and on the way home from work. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay.
The only other one would be the people were asking about women wearing tzitzit.
Okay, and I've answered this one a lot. Look, there's no positive command for the ladies to wear it. There's no negative one either. It says here, and speak to the children of Israel. The phrase there's Bnei Yisrael. Bnei Yisrael, in its essence, is the sons, but can also include the ladies. So all scripture, and the ladies, you have to, don't be offended, please. Okay. All scripture was written to the men. Even that stuff that's for the ladies was written to the men, for the men to share with the ladies. That's just the way the society was. Okay? The ladies did not have access like the men did. Came through leadership, went to the men were the leaders, and they shared it then with their families. Okay? So, since there's no positive command or negative command, it leaves it that gray. I would say that it's always been my policy that I would never stop you from wearing them. And so if you want to wear them, you're welcome to. Don't make them rainbow colored. Okay? White with blue, no beads, no bling. Don't do any of that nonsense. Okay? Let's also, here's another thing that comes up. Let's wear 4 and have them at least appear to be in the right place. In other words, I've seen guys with a device where you could hang all 4 on a piece of leather thing and clip it over your belt and they're all 4 on one hip. No. I've seen people wear just 1. People wear just 2. No. 4 tzitzit, 4 corners, have them be in the same place they would have been back in the day. People wearing them what? Right, he would wear them on it. Right. He clipped them through his collar eye holes on his button shirts. We had a guy did that one time. Look, don't do that, okay? They should be, by the way, there's a verse in Ephesians chapter 6. What's Ephesians chapter 6 cover? Good job. The full armor. And what's it say about the full armor? About your waist. You gird your waist with truth. What does the tzitzit represent? The Torah, the truth, Yeshua. Right there around your waist, where it belongs. First time that hit me, I was reading Ephesians 6. I was standing in front of a congregation. Actually, it was more than a congregation at a Sukkot. I literally jumped out of my chair, grabbed my tzitzit and said, ooh, do you think he's talking about this? And I happened to just be talking about the armor of Elohim, and I'd never made that connection before. That was a lot of years ago at a Sukkot, but I literally jumped out of my chair and the light bulb went on. I grabbed my tzitzit and I said, wait a second. Girding your waist with truth. All right? So let's put them around our waist. I don't care how you attach them. We don't wear those kind of garments generally. You want to get a Tallit katan, it makes it easier, that's fine. You can buy them, look for them anywhere online. K-A-T-A-N, Tallit, T-A-L-L-I-T, katan, K-A-T-A-N. Lots of companies sell them, you can get it on Amazon, I'm sure, okay? And you wear that under your garment. I put them around my belt, but I slide them into the position so that they look like, as a matter of fact, I had a person in New York come up to me and said, when did you start wearing a katan? I was like, I don't wear a katan, but I mean, they look like the same position that they would be if I wore a katan. Because I want them to look like that. It's not deceptive. It's putting them in the place everybody expects them to be. Just a little to the front and a little bit to the back of your hip. Probably no more than 4, 5, 6 inches apart. Not in the front by your crotch, in the back on your butt, and you're sitting on them, or they're getting in the front where you don't want them to be. Those of you that use the belt loops. I don't like wrapping them on the belt loops. I don't like them sitting, I don't want to sit on them. And I don't want them to be in my crotch either. Hey, listen, it is what it is. Look, we got a lot of verses to talk about all kinds of things. This is the least of it, right? But they should be on the side, on your hips. That's where they should be. All right, any other questions?
The only ones that I missed were regarding the Torah portion earlier. It was just a few more.
Okay, well, we're going to have to skip on that.
Okay.
It's now about 10 after 10. I wasn't feeling that great to begin with, so we're going to hopefully wrap it up from there. If anybody wants to come up here to wave goodbye, you can come up here. We can do a little wave thing. Nobody wants to come up, we don't have to do it. Oh, we need to close and pray. Okay, let's have Manny do it. He's got the mic. Okay, everybody want to just go ahead and rise? We'll get the camera on Manny, so let us go ahead and close in prayer.
Thank you, Abba Father, for letting us gather here tonight. We're so incredibly grateful to you, our Creator. Thank you for everything that you've done for us. Thank you for allowing us to share in your word, to learn from our teacher. Thank you for putting him in our lives that he can blaze that word on fire for us, that we can learn to walk this walk and learn what we need to do in order to be like you. Thank you, Father, and I ask for traveling mercies as we all go home tonight, as we all travel safely. Help us to fear you, Father, that we may gain the wisdom that we need to battle and learn trust. Thank you so much, Father, for all the Deuteronomy 8:2 tests that you put us through continually, and help us to understand that you are the reason we do what we do. Father, thank you. We thank you, we worship you, and I'm so grateful, Father. Thank you for this family. Thank you for this building. Thank you for my rabbi. In Yeshua's mighty name, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Actually, I got one more note here as you guys are coming up. In 1535, it says, all the congregation would stone the guys who gathered the sticks. Why all of them? How much more real would it be to you knowing that you picked up a stone to throw it, that if you did it, you'd be on the other side of that? Because it wasn't like they were just sentenced to death in general. All the congregation had to participate in that. So I thought that was pretty good. All right, we're going to get everybody up here who wants to be up here to wave. Mr. Dale, you have a coin now, so Dale's got a coin now. Here we go. You better get it out. There you go. All right. For those of you that are not knowing what the deal is here, we have a teaching called The Legend of the Coin. Okay, so anyway, go look that up. Right. The Legend of the Coin. And actually, we covered this a couple of weeks ago with the Pidyon Haben in Numbers chapter 3. So we did talk about that quite a little bit. All right. So that being said, so we're all out here. So we're going to wish everybody a good night and a good week. So we're going to say Laila Tov and Shavua Tov, and then we can tell them how much we love them. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Laila Tov.